Good morning. Welcome to this online worship service, a time set aside each week to think about what really matters in our lives. Our mission here at Sunnyhill is to create a more just and compassionate community within and beyond our walls. My name is Krista Stanley, and I serve as a worship associate for this congregation. If you're a newcomer or a visitor to our congregation, please visit our website at sunnyhill.org. You can click on the button that says New to Sunnyhill. We would love to let you know how you can connect with us even during this time when our building is closed. Today, as we listen to our opening music, we encourage everyone who is watching or listening, not just newcomers, but everyone, to let us know you're here by saying good morning or hello in the comment thread on Facebook or YouTube. We'd love to hear from all of you and have a chance to say good morning to everyone who is with us today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for saying hello.
Hey everyone, Will Page, and I'm here to excitedly say it's service auction time. On Saturday, June 12th, the service auction will be back. Yes, Sunnyhill's biggest fundraiser of the year and our premier social event. How should you prepare for this exciting event? I'm so glad you asked. The answer is donate, donate, donate. Well, no, I'm not asking you for cash here. We are looking for things provided by you to auction at this year's event. Be it goods like arts, crafts, tickets to events, a weekend at your fabulous vacation property. These are all items that would be ideal for our live bidding auction. These items can even include services like home repair, handy person services, babysitting, lessons of all kinds like music lessons, language lessons, cooking lessons. We will also have a silent auction where you could donate a multi-person event or class. What? You're still not sure? Let me see if I can help. So I'm a regular guy. By trade, I'm a mainframe systems analyst. My hobbies are cooking. I have some nostalgia for when I was a professional chef. I also love photography, from taking pictures to post-processing to printing and framing. I love paddling, whether by kayak or canoe. My wife, Francisca, and I also have a real passion for tournament poker. So here are some things you might see from me this year. Perhaps a framed photograph I took while traveling by train in Alaska. Maybe offer my chef expertise and bring a 5-course dinner for 2 cooked and served at my home for the live bidding event. Francisca and I have offered poker tournament in the silent auction every year for as long as I can remember, until COVID interrupted us last year, but I'm hoping we can return to it this year. Stay tuned. We also offered an afternoon barbecue and cocktail party. Who knows? Maybe even that could return this year. Last year, despite COVID, I was still able to offer a guided kayak tour of Cannonsburg Lake when we tracked down wildlife to photograph. Well, enough about us and what we might be offering. Let's talk about us and what we have done in auctions past and all the amazing things we have been lucky enough to gotten to win bids on. Things like this wonderful handcrafted wooden service board. Look at that craftsmanship. That's by Scott Smith. We have bid on and won long weekends away to Yog Lake. We had another getaway weekend to a condo in Seven Springs. Once we won a bid for several hours of handyman services, and we completely fixed up the drywall and refinished hardwood floors in our guest bedroom. In the silent auction realm, we've been to more events than we can even remember, but that has included Indian street food, a delectable Japanese Yoshinomi dinner, musical events, and so many great things hosted by amazing people just like you. So please keep an eye on sunnyhill.org for service auction details, which will soon include, if it doesn't already, a way to easily submit your auction items for this year's extravaganza. Hey, we miss everyone and hope to see everyone real soon. Bye now.
Our opening words were written by Marianne Cotter. Welcome to this community of possibility. This is love's hearth, the home of hope, a refuge for minds in search of truth. Unfolding, ever beautiful, ever strange. Here, compassion is our shelter, freedom our protection from the storms of bigotry and hate. In this congregation, may we find comfort and courage. Here, may our sight become vision, to see the unseen, to glimpse the good that is yet to be.
Please join us in saying the words for lighting our chalice.
This is a community of reflection and contemplation, of joy and sorrow, friendship, sharing, and laughter. We light this chalice in remembrance of what we have been, and in the hope of what we may become.
Who I'm becoming. I am all I have done. I am what I am dreaming. I've only just begun. I am who I'm becoming. I am all I have done. I am what I am dreaming. I've only just begun. You are who you're becoming. You are all you have done. You are what you are dreaming. You've only just begun. You are who you're becoming. You are all you have done. You are what you are dreaming. You've only just begun. We are who we're becoming. We are all we have done. We are what we are dreaming. We've only just begun. We are who we're becoming. We are all we have done. We are what we are dreaming. We've only just begun.
Perfect Square by Michael Hall. It was a perfect square. It had 4 matching corners and 4 equal sides, and it was perfectly happy. But on Monday, the square was cut into pieces and poked full of holes. It wasn't perfectly square anymore. So, it made itself into a fountain that babbled and giggled and clapped. On Tuesday, the square was torn into scraps, so it made itself into a garden. On Wednesday, the square was shredded in strips, so it made itself into a park. On Thursday, the square was shattered, so it made itself into a bridge. On Friday, the square was snipped into ribbons, so it made itself into a river. On Saturday, the square was crumbled and ripped and wrinkled, so it made itself into a mountain. On Sunday, the square waited to see what was next. It waited and waited. Nothing happened. Its 4 equal sides were confining. Its 4 matching corners were rigid and cramped. So it made itself into a window that looked out onto a mountain, that gave birth to a river, that was crossed by a bridge, that led to a park, that was home to a garden, and had, at its center, a fountain that babbled and giggled and clapped.
Each week at this time in our service, we share joys and sorrows submitted by members of the congregation. We share the things that we are celebrating as well as the things that we are mourning so that they do not need to be held alone. Joys and sorrows may be submitted online from our website, or you can contact me or a member of our staff or pastoral care team by email or phone. After each joy or sorrow that I read, please respond by saying, "We hold you in our hearts." A joy from Carol Carl. Carol says, "My grandson Brian has been accepted into a physical therapy graduate program, a long-held goal, which will result in a doctorate in general physical therapy. By sheer coincidence, this program, which begins in June, is at Western Kentucky University, where my daughter Adrienne received her degree in music." To Carol, Brian, and family, we hold you in our hearts. A joy from Helen Andrews. Helen says, "I want to give a big thank you to the Sunnyhill team helping to arrange COVID shot appointments. I was having trouble getting an appointment, so I finally sent a message asking for their help. Within 24 hours, I had an appointment and I've now had both shots. I'm glad we're still connecting with others in different ways when we cannot be together." To Helen, our vaccination appointment team, and to everyone who has made those vaccinations possible, we hold you in our hearts. Please join me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Sometimes, just as the stars seem cold and distant, so do we feel separate from our own thoughts and feelings. But when we pause to look, to listen, to simply be, we start to sense our connection with the stars and with our deepest fears and highest hopes, our brightest joys and our darkest sorrows. Sometimes, just as the stars seem far away and unreachable, so do we feel that others in our lives are beyond our reach. But when we pause in stillness, in calm, in quiet, we start to sense the nearness of those we love, the closeness of friends and family in our hearts, those whom we see every day and those who are gone. And sometimes, just as the stars seem impenetrable, so does all of life feel mysterious and confusing. But when we pause to notice, to see clearly, we start to sense patterns in the scattered stars, patterns in the spiral paths of our shared journeys, new understandings of where we've been and where we're going. We pray that in pausing, in looking, in listening, in opening, we might discern connection and closeness and movement toward that which binds all to all. Amen. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Day is a-breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Day is a-breaking in my soul. They've gone to heaven a-shouting. They've gone to heaven a-shouting. They've gone to heaven a-shouting. Day is a-breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Day is a-breaking in my soul. Down in the valley praying, down in the valley praying, down in the valley praying. Day is a-breaking in my soul. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Day is a-breaking in my soul. Last week on Easter Sunday, I reflected on what it means to practice resurrection and how, in the words of James Broughton, nothing perishes, nothing survives, everything transforms. I believe that one of our most important tasks as human beings is to learn how to embrace the wonder and mystery of transformation, not how to master it or control it or try to harness it for our own narrow purposes, but how to explore and even celebrate wild, untamable transformation at its deepest level. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe that every human being has the capacity to bring more love, kindness, creativity, and warmth into the world. But circumstances and our own expectations and preconceptions sometimes prevent us from focusing on how the process of becoming actually occurs. How do we engage in the process of forever becoming? I would suggest that there are several metaphors that might be useful in letting go of our preconceptions, metaphors that provide hints about how real and meaningful transformation occurs. The first of these metaphors is that of peeling away layers. Not so much peeling away layers of an onion, but rather peeling away layers of outward meaning and appearance that we have put on top of everything around us. When my family and I were in North Carolina, we lived in a little mill house, a house that had been constructed in the 1920s by the cotton mill owners to house their employees and their employees' families. While we were living in this house, I decided to engage in a major renovation, which involved removing a wall, installing an interior window, and refinishing the floors in the front part of the house. And when I say that I engaged in this project, I mostly mean that our friend and neighbor Ed did the work and I watched and occasionally helped. Ed is one of the most capable and handiest people I've ever known, and it was a real pleasure to observe and work with him. The floor in the house that we were working on had been long ago painted over, and over the years, more and more layers of paint had been added until there was not much hint of the wood that lay beneath. But when we took out the wall that separated the living room from the kitchen, we got a glimpse of the floor in its original unfinished condition, and it was startlingly beautiful. The floor was made of pine, but not the kind of pine that you find today in the lumber store. These floors were constructed in the 1920s with wood from what are now called old growth forests, where the trees being harvested were perhaps hundreds of years old. Old growth pine bears little or no resemblance to the pine that is harvested now, which is usually only 10 to 20 years old. By way of comparison, old growth pine typically had 30 growth rings per inch. The pine produced by modern lumber companies today might have only 3 to 5 rings per inch. These trees grew very slowly in dense forests where there was great competition for light. As a result, the growth rings were very tight in these trees. This wood is harder and drier than modern lumber. It's less prone to termite damage than modern wood, and it doesn't swell or shrink as much as newer wood. Sadly, by the 1940s, most of these old growth forests were gone. When we uncovered the floor of our house in Carborough, North Carolina, it seemed to glow. The wood had a natural sheen to it that was unlike anything I'd seen before. And touching the bare wood, I could almost feel it vibrating with energy. And it occurred to me that one of our fundamental tasks in the process of transforming something is to remove both the real and imagined layers that we have placed upon it. So often we try to put all of these layers of interpretation and analysis on our lives that the raw beauty of unvarnished experience is lost. Oftentimes, transformation requires peeling off the layers and appreciating things just as they are. Only then can we claim to be truly living and truly experiencing our own lives. And in the process of removing the layers and appreciating what lies beneath, transformation might begin. Another metaphor for change one that I mentioned last week, has to do with seeds and plants. One of the shortest parables in the Bible, just 4 verses long in the Gospel of Mark, is the parable of the growing seed. In it, Jesus says, "The kingdom of God is as if someone would scatter seed on the ground and would sleep and rise night and day, and the seed would sprout and grow, he does not know how. The earth produces of itself first the stalk, then the head, then the full grain in the head. But when the grain is ripe, at once he goes in with a sickle because the harvest has come." Earth-based religious traditions intuitively grasp the importance of this kind of transformation and celebrate its power and its mystery. And many of us feel closest to what some might call God or nature, with or without a capital G or capital N, when we are working with soil, which contains the building blocks of life, of forever becoming potential. The life cycle of plants and seeds suggests that no matter how hard we might try to turn life into a straight line that goes onward and upward forever, real life and real transformation are more like a circle than they are like a line. Since the Enlightenment era, human beings have imagined that with enough knowledge and enough force of will, they can conquer the natural world and turn the whole universe into a proving ground for human ingenuity and our manifest destiny as super beings who never move backward or downward, but only, as I said, onward and upward forever. But no meaningful transformation occurs only in a straight line. Real and meaningful transformation requires embracing and following the cycle of life in which there are times of growth, times of fruitfulness, times of decline and death, and times of regeneration and rebirth. As much as we may yearn for that perfect straight line, the only path that leads us anywhere worth going is the one that leads us, at least sometimes, in circles. Not circles of repeated mistakes, but rather circles of generative change and healing, even in the midst of death. The parable of the growing seed and its cycle of growth and death and rebirth, much of which occurs underground, invisible to us, provides a useful metaphor for transformation. Another such metaphor can be found in the changing nature of water, which can, as needed, change forms from gas to liquid to solid. Once there was a stream that ran from faraway mountains, passing through every kind and description of countryside, and at last reached the sands of the desert. Just as it had crossed every other barrier, the stream tried to cross this one, but found that as fast as it ran into the sand, its waters disappeared. It was convinced, however, that its destiny was to cross this desert, and yet there was no way. Now a hidden voice coming from the desert itself whispered, "The wind crosses the desert, and so can the stream." The stream objected that it was dashing itself against the sand and only getting absorbed, that the wind could fly, and this was why it could cross a desert. But hurtling in your own accustomed way, you cannot get across. You will either disappear or become a marsh. You must allow the wind to carry you over to your destination. But how could this happen? By allowing yourself to be absorbed in the wind. This idea was not acceptable to the stream. After all, it had never been absorbed before. It did not want to lose its individuality. And once having lost it, how was one to know that it could ever be regained? The wind, said the sand, performs this function. It takes up water, carries it over the desert, and lets it fall again. Falling as rain, the water again becomes a river. But how can I know that this is true? It is so, and if you do not believe it, you cannot become more than a quagmire, and even that could take many, many years. And it certainly is not the same as a stream. The stream said, but can I not remain the same stream that I am today? The desert answered, you cannot in either case remain so. Your essential part is carried away and forms a stream again. You are called what you are even today because you do not know which part of you is the essential one. When it heard this, certain echoes began to appear in the thoughts of the stream. Dimly it remembered a state in which it, or some part of it, had been held in the arms of a wind. It also remembered, or did it, that this was the real thing, not necessarily the obvious thing to do. And the stream raised its vapor into the welcoming arms of the wind, which gently and easily bore it upwards and along, letting it fall softly as soon as they reached the roof of a mountain many, many miles away. And because it had its doubts, the stream was able to remember and record more strongly in its mind the details of the experience. It reflected, yes, now I have learned my true identity. Sometimes we discover transformation when we peel away the layers that we have piled on top of life as it really is. Sometimes we discover transformation when we embrace the cycle of life that moves from seed to growth, to fruitfulness, to death, and then to rebirth. And sometimes we discover transformation when we are willing to change form and to allow the winds of life to carry us somewhere new, somewhere we could not possibly have reached in our former state using our accustomed methods. Going back to the growing seed metaphor for a moment, some of you may recall the story I told last week about the cup of dirt that the grandfather gave to his granddaughter. The story ends with the grandfather saying how life was everywhere and how it was hidden in the most ordinary and unlikely places. The granddaughter asks, "And all it needs is water, Grandpa?" And her grandfather replies, "No, all it needs is your faithfulness." Faithful living is not so much about following prescribed rules and striving for perfection as it is about embracing the unknown and leaning into it. Process theologian Catherine Keller said, "Faith is not settled belief, but living process. It is the very edge and opening of life in process. To live is to step with trust into the next moment, into the unpredictable." What a freeing thought that is. Faith is not settled belief, but living process. How might our lives be changed, forever transformed, if we leaned into faith not as believing or disbelieving certain statements, but rather as the process of opening up to life in all its beauty and in all its frightful unpredictability. The song we're going to sing in just a few minutes, Jacob's Ladder, Sarah's Circle, comes from the biblical story of Jacob, one of the patriarchs of the Israelites, the son of Isaac and Rebekah, grandson of Abraham and Sarah. Jacob dreamt one night of a ladder that reached from the earth all the way into the heavens. And in this dream, he saw angels climbing up and down the ladder, which was a passage between heaven and earth that was invisible to most mortals. One of the traditional rabbinical interpretations of the vision of Jacob's ladder is that we sometimes must ascend into the heavens far away from the earth in order to grow spiritually, to mature inwardly. And the ladder is, in fact, a circle. If you keep climbing up and up and up, eventually you come back to where you started. But when you return, while you might be in the same place as before, you yourself have been transformed by the journey. When you keep climbing up and up, eventually you gain some wisdom and some perspective that you could not have gained any other way. The Sarah's Circle lyrics were added in the 1980s as a result of the work of feminist theologians who emphasized the communal nature of religious life, not so much climbing and reaching, but rather forming circles of trust and mutual support as a means of creating something like heaven on earth. So sometimes we're climbing either up or down, reaching for the heavens or coming back down to earth. And other times we're joining hands in a circle, dancing with one another, supporting one another, and finding our true spiritual home right here, right now. In any case, if we are at all serious about transformation, which I see as one of the central tasks and functions of all of life, then we would do well to remember those powerful transformative metaphors from the natural world. We would do well to remember that sometimes we are called to peel away the layers, sometimes to embrace the cyclical nature of life, and sometimes to let ourselves be carried by the winds as we change forms, always leaning into faith, not as settled belief, but living process. May it be so. Amen.
We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing on. Every round goes higher, higher. Every round goes higher, higher. Every round goes higher, higher. We are climbing on. If I stumble, will you help me? If I stumble, will you help me? If I stumble, will you help me? We are climbing on. We are dancing Sarah's circles moving on and on, the circles moving. We are dancing on.
It's now time for our offering. If you'd like to make a gift via our online giving system, you can do so in one of two ways. You can go to sunnyhill.org and click on the button that says Online Giving, and then follow the instructions. Once you get to the drop-down menu, just choose either 2021 Pledge Collections if you're making a payment on your pledge, or non-pledge collections for other gifts. Or you can give by text at 412-324-3130. Just dial that number using your smartphone and follow the instructions. You can also mail a check if you prefer, and you can find our mailing address on our website at sunnyhill.org. Thank you so much for your generosity.
Please join us in saying the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are all together again.
Our closing words were written by Eric Williams. Blessed is the path on which you travel. Blessed is the body that carries you upon it. Blessed is your heart that has heard the call. Blessed is your mind that discerns the way. Blessed is the gift that you will receive by going. Truly blessed is the gift that you will become on the journey. Go in peace.